This is why I come. This is why I come on a minute late so you can work all this stuff out.
We're set. We're ready. All right, I can start with the monthly statistics. Let me just bring those up on my email. In August 2020, the police department handled 468 calls for service. We issued 3 parking tickets. We issued 54 traffic citations. We investigated 5 traffic accidents and made 1 arrest. None of those arrests were for DUI. DUI seemed to be on the decline, which is good. In terms of personnel, as you know, we have 1 officer out with an off-duty accident. He's projected to be out for quite some time. And we have 1 vacancy. That's the vacancy we're going to do the interview for on September 8th. So personnel-wise, we're doing okay. Training-wise and recertification-wise, Officer Scott Frank recertified the entire police department this month in first aid, CPR, and the AED use. That's a requirement of MOPEC that we keep that current. Again, utilizing in-house part-time staff. Scott's a paramedic, longtime member of the department. He was able to train everyone while they worked and used a computer-based program. So at a cost of, I think, less than $20 a person, we were able to get the entire police department recertified in first aid, CPR, and AED. So all our certifications remain current. Officers keep working through the online PA VTN, which is where they do their 12 hours of mandated in-service training. They do that via computer when they're working. So everybody's almost done or completed with that as of this point. So certifications are going good. In-service training for specialties is still remaining somewhat virtual. We do have some training coming up next month at the Police Academy in Bucks, the Public Safety Training Academy, where Officer Clark will become a trainer in cultural diversity, and then he'll bring that back and train the rest of the police department in that. Outside of that, it was a quiet summer, obviously, because of the COVID, and it seems to be trending that way. We remain focused on our mission, but thankfully, it's been quiet crime-wise. Questions?
No.
Wes, you have anything?
I have 2 things. A few weeks ago, Paula sent out to council the COOP that we need to re-examine. We periodically shake these things out, and we found a couple things that have been missed recently due to personnel changes and COVID. I never really expected to experience a pandemic in my life. I don't think anybody else did. So has anybody had a chance to look at the revisions I've made to the COOP?
I have, Wes, and I have no input. It all looks good to me.
Kim, have you had a chance to look at it?
No, not yet.
Okay. We can come back to it.
I might have looked at it and forgot.
Understood. The big sticking point that I really see is in lines of succession, we're in pretty good shape with the exception of the borough manager's position. When it was originally drafted, I believe it was in 2014, it obviously went John Boyle to Paula Johnson, who was the assistant manager. We currently do not have an assistant manager. So council should figure out how they want a line of succession to go for that position. There are a couple avenues that are relatively obvious. So, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what you want to do with that, and we can plug that in.
Hey, Wes?
Sure.
Has there been a situation where we have not had a borough assistant manager in the past that we could council's fairly new, most members. So is there something we could show them from how it's been structured in the past in that situation by chance?
Well, Paula was named assistant manager, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember when. Prior to that, she was the borough secretary, and there was another title. I don't remember what it was. But so yeah, we never had an assistant manager until about 5 years ago. We didn't have COOP until 5 years ago. we never really thought about lines of succession. If we look at what happened 2 managers ago, where we did go 6 months without with an acting manager, and actually we did just recently, a year ago, we had an acting manager. Before Paula was appointed, she was in the acting interim position. So we have been without, and obviously in the line of succession, we're looking at worst case scenarios, or it can even be she's stuck on the West Coast and she can't get home for something. It doesn't have to be worst case scenario, but COVID shows us that if you were away somewhere, you may not get home for a long time due to whatever types of circumstances we're looking at. So we just should address this in some fashion. My recommendation.
And I can tell you, to piggyback on what Wes says, as you know, I had experience in emergency management in my past life. And I cannot tell you how many times we used our lines of succession. More, not for the doomsday scenarios, but more for the, hey, for 2 hours, somebody's out of touch and we just need to know who that next person is. And I don't think that Wes, is saying that we need to have an assistant manager per se, but we just need to know who's in that line for each position.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's clear in the police department because we're a paramilitary structure. It's very spelled out as to who's in that line, but in civilian jobs, a lot of people don't take that into account and think about it.
Well, when Paula was on vacation, Patty was covering for her, so perhaps that would work without actually calling her assistant manager, unless I don't know the ins and outs of officially calling somebody that, but
I think, Wes, tell me if you disagree. I think it's less about the title, just more about who's it.
Yes,
Right.
yes. It's who's going to fill in if she's unable to for any reason. You can call it what you
Why
want.
that's helpful ahead of time is if it never happens, at least Wes can identify from his position, he identifies the training that's critical to that position and begins to get that training on board before it's really needed.
Sure.
For emergency management purposes, we should be able to do the job of 2 people above us and 1 below us. So it's real important that we get her trained up for not only the financial responsibilities, the bookkeeping, all the stuff that Paula does on a day in and day out basis, but what Paula's responsibilities become in the event of an emergency.
Okay.
Right, Wes?
Yeah, you summed it up better than I could. So, we can revisit this, but it is something that we need to address. And the revisions in general do require council's vote. So if you want to wait till next month and the new council member, we can bring him up to speed. That's understandable also. So the only other thing I had that's just a slight concern in the back of my head is last week, the Business Association announced that the Christmas parade has been canceled for this year. Totally understandable, and it's a justified decision. But what's concerning is the comments that I've been seeing on social media. We may have a spontaneous parade calling it a protest. So I just think we should just be thinking this is something that, and I think this is actually something that might happen. People are getting a little cranky about the changes that we're having to endure due to COVID. And this is a big one. This is one that hits home, Christmas.
Excellent segue into the proposed ordinance. Did everyone see the comments on the proposed ordinance?
Yes.
No.
One of the things I had great difficulty with was the $25 fine. If it becomes that easy, why would anybody apply for anything?
Right.
I would just pay the 25 and move on. So once we get that straightened out, where the fine actually becomes a deterrent, and there was some language in there with the shall and may on council's excusing of the fees, the insurance fees. Once we get that language straightened out, I think that ordinance is going to go a long way to help us protect against what Wes is talking about in December. And not only that, but there's court cases coming up that are going to potentially spark more protest, and we want to be in a position to protect the borough from that.
Chief, what's the target date to have that on the agenda?
I believe it's 2 weeks from tonight.
That's what I thought. Okay, good.
Get that language straightened out.
On that subject, it's funny, the $25 fine thing. When I issue citations for various infractions throughout the town, I've actually had property owners tell me, if the fine's only $25, it's cheaper to pay the fine or ignore it and do without, like shoveling your sidewalk and things like that. So, $25 is not an adequate.
When I first got into law enforcement, we had overnight parking ordinance in the first municipality I worked in, and it was $5. And what we found was we were writing 25, 30 tickets a night. If you went to bed and you left your car on the street, it was just easier to leave it there.
Sure.
We upped that to $25, and people started getting out of bed. There is a tipping point where deterrence is created, and we need to find out what that is in this case.
And just the other day, I forget what municipality it was, somewhere in our country, a municipality did pass on a $2,500 overtime bill for a protest to a teenager. It didn't go well for that mayor. So, I think it's good that we're looking ahead at this, trying to get a little bit more in front of than what we were a few months ago when this started.
I appreciate you looking out for me, Wes.
Mr. Mayor, I've always got your 9, man. You're 6.
Yeah, I
I wasn't in service.
need something on my 6, not my 9. I can see my 9.
I wasn't in service, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anything for us?
No.
All right, then we'll see you, I guess, at the big meeting in about 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
everyone.